Hi, I'm Ash, and this is Two Think Outs. I've been buying on eBay again. I bought the Indomitus Warhammer 40k starter box. Comes with Space Marines and Necrons. Comes with a nice little force of both. So let's take a look. We've got bases galore, and then a large collection of plastic Space Marines snap fit models. I'm going to just be building Space Marines in this video, so let's take a look at the things you'll need. We'll start off with hobby knives. Box cutters or scalpels are fine. Some sandpaper. Then there's some spare blades for the box cutter. Got trusty snips. These are Citadel ones. Got a little pin vise for drilling out the barrels. Some green stuff. Glue. Plastic cement and super glue. So let's get started. Grab your snips, start snipping out the parts. If you're following the instructions, each part has got a little number next to it. You need to make sure that you're using the right parts, because some of them do look similar, but they don't go together quite as well if you're not putting the right model together. Especially with the Necrons, the arms are in pairs, and if you don't put those two arms together, then they don't line up. When using the clippers, you want to snip close to the model, but leave a little bit of the sprue left on. If you clip too close to the model, you can damage the model or cause it to bend or break. So just leave a little bit of the sprue and you clean that up once you've snipped all the parts out. So just go around, snip all the bits out before cleaning them up. Once you've got your parts out, then you take your hobby knife or craft knife, and any of those little bits of sprue you can just slice off. A lot of these parts, especially on the top there that I'm cutting at the minute, you won't actually see when the next part goes on, but I like to clean it up anyway because it makes the part sit a lot flatter. Try not to cut yourself. Cut away from yourself where possible. It's not always possible, and with plenty of control in the blade, it's not a problem cutting towards yourself. But obviously, if you're a child using a knife, make sure you've got adult supervision. Then any other areas that you might need to just either use a file or a bit of sandpaper just to smooth out. Just give it a quick little rub.
I beg your pardon?
Once all the pieces are sanded, then it's time to move on to the mold lines. And most of these won't be a problem once the model's actually put together. There's a few like in the centre of the wheel. When you paint it, you will find that, especially if you're using contrast paints or washes, it will build up against that mold line. So just take the back edge of your blade and just drag it a little bit along the mold line, and it'll soon come off. There's not really many on the bike. The new models for the Warhammer 40k I found virtually no problem with the mould lines, just the odd little bit here and there. Once all the mould lines are cleaned up, it's time then to move on to drilling out the gun barrels. This isn't something you have to do, it just adds that little bit of extra detail, and I think it does make a big difference when you're looking at the model close up. I'm using this pin vise I got off eBay. It was 99p, including a full set of drill bits. It takes a little bit of time. Once that piece is finished, move on to the rest of the parts for the bike. I then realised that it was quite difficult to see the grey plastic on the black background of the mat, so I flipped it over. Much better. It's at this point that you realise that you haven't actually cut out all the pieces and you've missed one. So go back and repeat the process on any parts you've missed. now with all the pieces laid out, it's time to get your glue. Because these are plastic parts, I'm going to be using the plastic cement, don't need super glue. This has got a handy little tip, it's quite a fine tip. Because this was a new bottle, it started coming out quite fast, so I decided to pour it onto the lid of an old plastic container and use a cocktail stick to dab it on instead, just because it was coming out quite fast. Normally those bottles are a lot better at controlling it, but that was pouring out very, very fast. You just want to touch the plastic cement on any parts that'll be touching each other. The plastic cement actually welds the plastic together, it melts the two parts, and the bond is really strong, so you only need a tiny little bit. I'll just speed this up as we go through all the pieces. Follow the instructions, test fit any pieces that you're not sure about beforehand. Touch the torso and then the rear wheels and the sides. Along some of the joints, I ran a small bead of the glue to try and weld it and make it a bit smoother. I later went through with some green stuff on the deeper recesses where it hadn't joined quite so smoothly. Just attaching the arms now. All in all, this model was quite nice. I made a few of the older Warhammer 40k Space Marine bikes, and this is so much nicer. The new kit, really enjoyed building these, and they look brilliant. So once that's all put together, then it's time for green stuff. Only need a tiny amount, so you get your green stuff, and with a hobby knife just cut a tiniest amount of the blue and the yellow and then mix them together. Once they are fully mixed and it's a consistent nice green colour, that's when you can start working it. You can leave it a few minutes if you want it to firm up a little bit. I like to work it straight away, especially trying to get it into those thin recesses that are along the front edge of the bike. So I made a small thin sausage and pressed that in. Then using my scalpel and a little bit of water on the end of the scalpel, I start pushing that smooth. The water just stops the green stuff from sticking to the metal of your blade. A little bit will stick, but not a lot. Just keep working that in to the crease and working any of the details, like on the little screen and round. There's like a little box thing on the front. Smooth it out as well with a little bit of water on your finger. When I say water, I am literally licking my thumb before pressing it on. It just stops any fingerprints. There's a few other smaller areas, like on the mudguard on the very front and the mudguard at the back, and it's just a case of repeating that process. This can also be done to any of the lines where the front and back parts of the body connect. On most of the Space Marines, it's not a problem. You can't really see it once the arms are attached. The gaps are only really noticeable on large flat areas, which luckily in this set was mainly on the motorbike. So once that's in, I then use the remaining green stuff for the tiny little mould hole in the middle of the base, and then sand the base so it's smoother, still leaving a little bit of the texture. And there you have it. Then it's on to priming. Ta-da! I use a cheap Halford's plastic primer, just a spray primer. I went back through after and added some details into the bases In a future video, I'll go through how I base these miniatures. Once your one bike's complete, it's time to do the other three. I just followed the exact same steps, following the instructions, and did them one by one. I then repeated this process for each of the other units. I worked doing one unit at a time. It was quite enjoyable, to be honest. Some of these models I've never built before, especially the Blade Guard. Can enjoy painting those. As you can see, they've all been primed and all based, and although the bases are all different, they all do tie in together. In upcoming videos, I've got the other half of the Indomitus box, the Necrons. Got painting guides for the Space Marines. For a high contrast Ultramarine there. Very white highlights to very dark recesses. And we've also got some Lord of the Rings. Got this lovely base. Please like, comment, subscribe.